Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this last day of October, a holiday. We'll give people just a couple of moments to sort of populate in, and then we will kick things off. Welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. All right, I've got a little bit of housekeeping, so I'll get started on that. Hello. Thank you very, very much for joining us today here at our ZingTrain webinar. Today, we are going to be talking about the art of giving great customer service. My name is Katie Alexander. I am ZingTrain's community builder, and I will be your host today on this learning journey. And I am very excited to be alongside your presenter today, ZingTrain trainer, Jenni Yim. We also have Mara Ferguson, our keynote liaison. She is behind the scenes monitoring the chat and the Q&A, and I'll be doing that with her throughout the hour. We are coming to you live from ZingTrain in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and we would love to hear where everyone is joining us from. And if you're wearing a Halloween costume, we cannot see that, but we would love to know what you might be dressed up as well. So feel free to drop those details in the chat. You can find that little icon at the bottom of your screen. And if you catch wind of any neighbors or any costume twins, be sure to say hey to them. We are going to dive into the good stuff in just a minute. I have 3 things to share that will help make the most of our time together here. One is the format of today's webinar. Jenni will be spending some time presenting at the beginning, and then we'll do a Q&A session, sort of like 2/3 through to the end. And we're going to be collecting questions in the Q&A section of Zoom throughout. So please feel free to submit any of your questions there. And there's an upvote feature. So if someone else asks a question and you're really interested in that too, please upvote it, and then we can prioritize questions if we need to at the end of the time. And we are going to do our best to get to as many of your questions as possible. However, if we are not able to, we will send additional resources to those questions in the follow-up email that you will receive by the end of tomorrow. The second thing of note is that there's closed captioning available. And if you'd like to turn that on, Mara is going to drop details, thank you, right in the chat. It's the captions button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And then the third item of business is that we are recording this conversation because we will send out this recording along with Jenni's slides to you by the end of tomorrow in the follow-up email. And this recording will also live on our website. We have a huge section of free resources. So this webinar, many past webinars, blogs, and articles all live there for your perusal. So that's all from me. I will turn it over to Jenni, and I'll see you again at the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Katie, and hello, everyone. Hello, welcome. Hello, East Coast, West Coast, and everyone in between. Thrilled to be here today for our ZingTrain webinar on the art of giving great service. I'll share a little bit about myself, Jenni Yim. I have been in the Zingerman's community of businesses for about 7 years now in various roles, a number of different jobs, service positions, and something I appreciate is that the emphasis on service was always consistent no matter what role I'm in. For example, I worked for a few years at Zingerman's mail order, and I started as a seasonal part-time staff person, just, intending to work for a few weeks in November, December. And I was pleasantly surprised that I got the same level of service training that regular full-time staff did. And that was huge, that I felt like I was invested in and I was able to do a better job for those few weeks, and enjoyed it so much that I stayed on for a few years. I was also given tips on how to implement what I learned in training, which was amazing. And then I was given opportunities to practice those tips with the gift of feedback from leaders and coworkers. Speaking of which, I received great service from coworkers and from my leaders. Something as simple as checking in on how I'm doing and figuring out what I could use help with. So for that reason, I'm still with the Zingerman's community of businesses and thrilled to be here with you today. We have some objectives for our session, and in the webinar, we'll be just sharing why great service matters. We'll also talk about Zingerman's 3 steps to giving great service with some tips on how to deliver on them, and then exploring why internal customer service is just as important, if not more, than external service. So to kick things off, I want to share some context of why we do service training and even who we are. Hey, we're Zingerman's community of businesses. You may hear us refer to it as the ZCOB for short. And what we are is in a community of 11 businesses in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area. And it all began with one business in 1982 when co-founders Ari Weinsweig and Paul Saginaw opened Zingerman's Deli with a loan from Paul's grandma. And they had a goal of having a deli that served a Reuben so big and delicious that you needed 2 hands to hold it. And when you bit into the Reuben, Russian dressing would drip down your arms. They also had a goal that they wanted to distinguish themselves by offering fine retail items like extra virgin olive oil, which in 1982 was a bit of a rarity and a special item. And they also recognized it was important to offer great service, a reason that customers would want to come back. And in terms of great service, internal great service, meaning they wanted a great place for staff to work where they would want to stay and grow with the company. So the deli did grow, and with it, a need to train an expanding staff and how to consistently deliver this high quality customer service. And now we're a community of 11 different businesses who focus on different products and services. Yet we all share the same mission statement and we all share the same service expectations, and that's what we'll be covering today. So just to share that in a nutshell about Zingerman's, I think it's one of the things that's truly different and lovely about Zingerman's is that customer service is truly everyone's job, and it feels universal across the entire organization. So for organization, we do have a mission statement that came out of our deli, the first business, and here it is. Our Zingerman's mission statement is that we share the Zingerman's experience, selling food that makes you happy, giving service that makes you smile, in passionate pursuit of our mission, showing love and care in all our actions to enrich as many lives as we possibly can. So that's our mission statement. And I'm pretty sure not every staff person can recite the entire mission statement in the organization, but I can know that every staff person knows the first line because we focus on that in our training and our orientation, and that is to share the Zingerman's experience. So sharing the Zingerman's experience, that is everyone's job. You may have a role title like server or accountant, but everyone's job is truly to share the Zingerman's experience. But regardless of how long you've been with the company, regardless of what your goal is for the shift, the overall goal remains the same for everyone. It's really nice because it helps us get out of that, oh, that's not my job element, oh, that's above my pay grade, those kinds of barriers that we sometimes put on ourselves. I think of an example of one time I was at a restaurant, I dropped my fork, I saw a server, I waved them over and I asked them for a new fork and they said, oh, this isn't my section. And they let me know that that was not part of the whole experience. So in our company, if we can get some a fork, we get it. We help with the experience. We don't hold ourselves bound by barriers within specific roles. Okay. And you may ask, what about the bottom line though? Isn't that what people are supposed to work for? Well, at Zingerman's, to give you an overview, this is our business perspective chart, which if you're interested in learning more, feel free to check out our virtual workshops. We have one on culture where we may go into this more in depth. But the key here is that Zingerman's, we have 3 bottom lines, not just one. Our 3 bottom lines are great food, great service, and great finance. So these are multiple bottom lines. We check in on these at least weekly. We work hard to maintain them. And our job is to deliver on all 3 bottom lines. And today we'll be focusing on the bottom line of great service. So, how do we implement this into our organization when we have 3 bottom lines? Well, when we start with service and training with our staff, we go through an exercise in order to build a common understanding. So every employee at Zingerman's, over 700, does this exercise with other staff in their training. And we basically ask 3 questions. We ask a group of people to discuss with one another, to come up with a list of who are your customers. Just that basic question, to make a big list, not necessarily customers by name, but kind of categories of customers. Then we also ask the question that's seemingly obvious, why give great service? And then we ask, why is great service so hard to find in the world at large? So we give people time to discuss this with one another, and you can even ask yourselves at this point, who are your customers? We can think about it. What kind of people do you serve? Who are you interacting with? So we ask our employees to generate a list, and then we pull it all together into a giant list, and it may include types of people, say by age: adults, teens, children, seniors, elders, families. So different types of customers you may be interacting with. But you could have different categories, like they could be regulars who come in every week on the same day and same time. Maybe they're first-time guests checking things out. Maybe they're visiting town, or maybe they're in town, but they're new. They just moved here. There are different types of customers in this way. We can also think about the ways that customers are interacting with us. Oftentimes we first think to in person, but a lot of times we're also interacting by phone, by email, by website, by online chat with direct messaging, one-on-one, social media, a lot of different ways. And then you can also think about different relationships that we may have, but people we may also consider customers, like our vendors, delivery people, our neighbors, our community services, our police and health services. We consider and expect our staff to interact with these people as customers as well. Speaking of, we also consider our coworkers, each other, as our customers. Our staff, anyone who reports to us, our leaders, anyone that we report to could be our customers, even applicants, people who may not work with us but want to. It's not unusual for Zingerman staff to have applied several times before they're hired. Even if, not everyone is going to get a position, but we want every applicant to have a positive experience. Within the same business, other departments, maybe our customers, and then other businesses. And also, depending on your industry, you may have inspectors or regulators that you're working with. So once we actually start to ask ourselves who our customers are and really start to think about possibilities, it can get really, really long, and that's a good thing. Why do we take this time to do training in this way when we could just sum it up with saying our customers are everyone we interact with? Well, someone every time we do this training does bring this up and says, everyone is our customer. Everyone we interact with, we want to give service to, great service to. And that's lovely. However, if you notice, everyone is one word, but if we look at what is behind everyone, we're missing all of these different categories. So we do find it a valuable practice to take the time to think about who are our customers, breaking that down, who is everyone, and really thinking about it. And that allows us to tailor our approach. At Zingerman's, we have a one-size-fits-one approach to service. And so all these different categories may have different sizes that we adjust to give great service to. Another way to think about it is sometimes people start with the golden rule: treat others as you wish to be treated. And we like to think about the platinum rule, which is to treat others as they wish to be treated. So people who are new to town may have different expectations or needs or things they may appreciate from, say, regulars. And we can think about that and tailor our approach accordingly. So thanks for taking that time with me to think about who everyone might be in terms of our customers. Next up, we ask our staff why give great service, which is a question that inevitably comes up to ourselves when we're in really busy periods. Like, really, what is the point when we can get through things without great service? Maybe we could do okay service. Well, there's a lot of reasons. We ask people to think about it, help get that in their brains, and they come up with a lot of great reasons, such that we want people to return for services or products. We want them to share recommendations. Word of mouth advertising is immensely valuable. We have reputations to uphold. We would much rather people say positive things rather than negative things in terms of our reputation. Some people say we want to give great service because it's the job. That's how I get a paycheck. And that is valid. Yep. And we emphasize we really encourage people to do their best in their jobs. Sometimes we hear in service positions, people say, well, this is what I'm doing until I get a real job. And one response to that is, well, this job pays my real rent. And so I consider it a real job. And honestly, I would prefer to hire someone who's done a really thorough effort in their current job as opposed to not putting an effort waiting for a future position. So there's a lot of reasons. And really, giving great service can feel good. That helps with job satisfaction, it helps with staff retention, and it can positively impact others in our community. And it relates to the job satisfaction and our mission of enriching as many lives as we possibly can. And inevitably in our sessions, when we do this exercise, someone will say, it is the right thing to do. And that's what it really comes down to. So whenever we're busy or we're second guessing ourselves and asking why really is the point of giving great service, it is the right thing to do when it comes down to it. Our next question, third question that we ask is for staff in building a common understanding, is to ask, why is great service so hard to find in the world at large? People have lots of reasons for this, such as there's not enough time, period. There's not enough staffing. We don't have enough energy. There's not enough inventory of product to work with, delivery delays. It's hard to give great service, especially to consistently. It's also not fair. Some of you may resonate with this. One of our co-founders, Paul Saginaw, likes to say, fair is another planet. We don't live on planet fair. This is one of the things that makes service so challenging. It's also often not valued, especially as a profession. One of the things that honestly drew me to the trainer position at ZingTrain is in the job description, it said that we believe customer service is an honorable profession. And I was like, yeah, that really resonates. All right. And oftentimes we've been hearing, especially in the past few years, well, the world has just given up, so it's hard to find good service. People don't care, right? But really, oftentimes it's because there's a lack of training. If we ask ourselves how many of ourselves started working as young teenagers, and then we can ask ourselves, how many of us received great customer service training at our first job as teenagers? And then we can also ask ourselves, how do we treat teenagers in the world at large? I myself don't always look at teenagers with the most trust, especially around times like Halloween. There have been discussions of, oh, are teenagers up to no good? If we ourselves are not giving great service to teenagers, they're not experiencing that. There's nothing to emulate. There's nothing to repeat. So if we're asking them to go out and give great service, we're really not giving them any training opportunities. And also a lack of definition. If we're not defining great service, it's not realistic to expect people to carry it out. So defining great service is key in order to perform it consistently. And the reason we emphasize this to our staff is because we all have our own definitions of service. Some people think of it more about being nice. Some people think about more about giving things away, and it could come out in different ways. And in reality, even one person can have many different definitions of service that we feel like giving, depending on how we're feeling at the moment, whether it's the beginning of our shift or the end of our shift, whether we're rested or we're tired. So for that reason, having a core communicated definition that everyone shares is immensely valuable. So for us at Zingerman's, we defined it, and we defined it in 3 steps to giving great service. This is our recipe or our set of steps to follow to achieve consistent results. And that is to figure out what the guest wants. We want to get it for them accurately, politely, enthusiastically, and we want to go the extra mile. So I was thrilled there were 3 steps and not 27, because that's easy enough for me to remember. And yet I still printed them and had them on my desk to follow consistently, just to make sure as a reminder. And these are flexible enough to allow for creativity, so you can tailor the service to the needs of the person you're working with, shift things on your role, personalities, but the steps remain the same. So let's dive into them. So we first figure out what the customer wants. How do we figure out what somebody wants? We usually ask, and we start by asking open-ended questions as opposed to closed yes or no questions. Because can I help you or may I help you is a yes or no question. But asking how may I help you, what can I help you find, what brings you in today? So those are more conversation starters. We also read body language, listen to tone of voice as we're doing this. It's basically detective work, taking in multiple clues and then getting a sense of what people may need. And people don't always know what they need. So this is our role, is to help and offer options to help someone narrow down what they may actually want. It's not unusual for someone to come in thinking they know what they want and realize, actually, I wanted something different. Oh, thanks for helping me figure that out. We have 2 tools that we teach our staff to help achieve this goal. The first is the 10-4 rule. And this is a tool to help us greet guests. And this means, similar to the character that's on this slide, when people are about 10 feet away, you make eye contact and smile. And then when you're 4 feet away, verbally greet the other person, such as hello. That's it. That's the 10-4 rule. It's easy to remember. You can actually measure it. You can practice it. You can adapt it for different situations and different environments. It was our 10-6 rule while we were social distancing. But the idea is that you make eye contact, smile, and that's an acknowledgement. Hey, I see you. You exist. And then a verbal greeting. You are starting an opening. You are inviting someone. You're letting them know you're there. This may seem small, but you can also think about times that you have not been acknowledged. Say when you've gone into a business, there's staff around, you're looking for help, and you're not getting eye contact. You can think about how that feels and what a difference that makes to your experience. So key is we do 10-4 with everyone. Everyone. It works through glass, it works 360 degrees around you, and we do it with customers externally and coworkers alike. It's great. We can also do it over the phone. We can smile before we answer the phone. We can do it virtually on video calls. We can drop messages in to say hi in chat. We can wave to people as their audio is connecting, just to get an acknowledgement. And it's kind of amazing because whether or not you're extroverted or introverted, it works on both types of people. So I personally am a deep introvert. And that's one reason I deeply appreciated this tool, because it was measurable, it was clear, I could repeat it, it's consistent, and I can do it with everyone, and I get a positive response in kind. It's amazing. And I can do it with coworkers, and it's amazing how much of an energy boost this can be. More than once I've been asked, what is Zingerman's secret to hiring such friendly people? And I realized we have the same employee applicant pool as everyone else in our area. I think that's the 10-4 rule that has made the difference, that we expected of everyone. And just that making eye contact acknowledgement goes such a long way in people feeling that, oh, wow, that person's friendly. This whole space, this whole business is friendly. It's had a huge impact on our level of service. So if there's anything that you take away from this webinar, it could be this 10-4 rule, right? Next, another tip is to engage with the customer. And for us, this means spending as much time as possible, not as little as possible with the customer. So again, engaging with the customer means spending as much time as possible with the customer, not as little. I like to think about this as abundant attention, or sometimes we consider this full face, meaning you actually, if you're in person, move your full face, your full body towards the person. They are your focus. And what this looks like may be just 1 or 2 more minutes, maybe even 30 seconds of an interaction, asking, what else can I help with? And it leaves an interaction feeling not rushed. Maybe there was another question that if you had not resolved, it would have meant the customer would have to come back later, meaning the staff would have had to take more time and resources. So actually, this is an investment, is engaging with the customer. One example of this is I went into my library, not visiting for 2 years, didn't know what I was doing, and someone took the time to teach me how to use the self-checkout. Took about 2 minutes, and I do the self-checkout all the time now, which actually saves the circulation desk some resources. So I think that was a valuable investment. So we've spent a lot of time on step 1 here because we can't really do step 2 until we figure out what the customer wants. But once we figured out what they wanted, then we can get to step 2 effectively, which is to get it for them. And we want to do it accurately. So that's knowing your systems, knowing your products, and really it means asking for help when you don't know the answer. That is key in accuracy. In our organization, we believe that asking for help is a sign of strength. We know that someone isn't going to know everything, so asking for help is key to accuracy. When we talk about accuracy, we can also be referring to timelines. This is communicating accurate timelines. For example, say if we need to email someone, if we say as soon as possible, that could mean lots of different things to different people. As soon as possible might mean 1 hour to someone, and might mean 5 minutes to someone else. So we really try to be specific. So if as soon as possible, we try to translate into that a time, I'm going to get back to you within 1 hour. And if we don't have an hour by then, we still contact them to let them know, I'm so sorry you've been delayed. This is our new timeline. Similar with table waits, our Zingerman's Roadhouse, full service restaurant. We used to say our table, you'll have a table ready in 20 to 30 minutes, say. But we've learned that time can move differently when you have a group of people waiting who are hungry. So what seems like 20 to 30 minutes might actually be 10 or 12 minutes in our time, but not to the guest. So you can actually say, instead of 20 to 30 minutes, you can give the clock time. So say your table will be ready between 6:50 and 7 p.m. That helps with accuracy in terms of communicating between the host and the guests, and it helps with expectations for the overall experience. So for that, when that spirit, we want to err on the side of under promise to over deliver. We want to under promise to over deliver. We want to avoid over promising and under delivering. So if we use that restaurant table wait example, if we know a table is going to be ready in 20 to 30 minutes, we're more likely to say your table will be ready in 30 minutes or at this time, because maybe the table will be ready in 25 minutes. And then, hey, it's 5 minutes before you said it would be ready. It's a win for everyone. If we had said 20 minutes and it was ready in 25 minutes, then we would have been 5 minutes late. The guest would have been waiting and wondering what was going on. We try to give ourselves some grace on this, especially if we need to check with coworkers or hear back from another department or another business in order to get back to a guest. Things typically take 5 times longer than we think it will, and that's why we really aim to underpromise to overdeliver. Helps with everyone's experience, coworkers and customers alike, especially service to yourself. Yeah. And then we want to do things politely. which is, of course, showing manners, courtesy, and respect. We also try to avoid jargon or lingo, terms that people may not be familiar with, especially if it's industry related. And specifically to Zingerman's, this means focusing on the positive power of language. So for us, we recognize that specific words or phrases can sometimes have a negative effect on a customer, even when the best service intentions are meant. So that's why we go over this concept with our staff. We talk about phrases to avoid, things to instead try, and thoughts on why. For example, we try to avoid saying you have to, and instead try saying like one option is, or if you do this, then this will happen. Once you sign this, then we can move on to the next step. And the reason is our job is not to tell people what to do. Our job is to give people options. And I know my inner 14-year-old self, when I hear you have to, sometimes I have an internal response of, no, I don't. Even if I totally have to suffer consequences, there's something about it. So just a small change in wording can make a difference in terms of a dynamic. You have to is a power dynamic that we don't need to introduce. Another example is no problem, which is a super common phrase, really positive, totally well-intentioned. I hear all the time, and I didn't really think about it until I was working for Zingerman's, and it was pointed out that, this is a phrase that is two negative words, no and problem, that we're using to express a positive sentiment. So maybe we could just use positive words to say what we mean, like you're welcome, my pleasure, so happy to, of course. And the reason is also we don't want to imply that there was ever a problem to begin with. And especially because the phrase no problem is often the last words we may hear in an interaction, we want to end on a positive note when possible. So these are some examples of phrases that represent a larger practice of being mindful of words and phrases and how they may impact others. And the great thing is you can do this with coworkers. You can ask them, hey, how does this sound? How does this make you feel? And it's interesting to get a range of how people may interpret different words. It helps us craft our art of giving great service. Right. So the last element of step number 2 is to get it for things for guests enthusiastically. And that means that a customer leaves feeling an interaction. They feel like they were the best part of our day. So again, we want guests leaving interactions feeling like they were the best part of our day. And as staff, that means that we can practice ways to genuinely express enthusiasm. Could be like energetic, like a cheerleader. Sometimes it could be calm, patient. We tailor it to the customer experience. And it could be letting them know like, hey, it was my pleasure to help you problem solve this. This is what I enjoy doing. Or, oh my gosh, it was amazing talking to you about bacon for 20 minutes. Whatever it is, we try to express that gratitude to let people know. And that actually can go a long way in job satisfaction. So if we do steps 1 and 2, that is good service. Step 3 for us is what makes it great service. And that's going the extra mile, which is doing something extra the customer did not ask for or did not expect. This is kind of like a piggy bank, because as you build up extra miles, it's like building up good rapport, which can make up for mistakes that we will inevitably make. Some of the best extra miles are free. They could be information on the next step of the process. It could be personal recommendations, parking options, depending on your situation, connections to free resources or support. If someone needs to get to websites or forums, you could link it for them in emails. It could be a server writing the date on what's in a to-go box on a takeout container, which I always appreciate when I open my fridge and it's full of boxes that I can't see through. So, and the fun thing is, you can also be aware that it can become the expectation. So when we do give or offer an extra mile, it's helpful to let them know it's extra. So, oh, we had these samples from the kitchen that we wanted to share as a gift today. Yep. And when we're not saying it's the extra mile, it's much easier to become the expectation. And even when you let people know it's extra, at some point it will become the expectation. And that's okay. That means you are leveling up your service game. And what you do is you come up with more extra miles to continue leveling up your service. You can even come up with a list or an extra mile file for your department, so your staff can all compile extra miles they can do, and they can share that resource with each other. Hugely helpful when new staff come on board. Speaking of, these are extra miles are great for coworkers. You can do these by helping out with tasks. You can share interesting articles, things that they may be related to the hobbies, maybe bringing them a treat or a drink that they like, maybe brushing off their car if you live in a snowy area while yours is warming up. Whatever it is, we try and do extra miles, actually all of the service steps with our coworkers as well as external customers. So these are our 3 steps to giving great service. This is what we ask our staff to do in every interaction with that. Who is our customer? Everyone can, meaning all those different people. We encourage us to do it really with everyone, meaning coworkers, anyone who's coming into the building. We want it to become habit. And these interactions could be quick, maybe less than a minute. These 3 steps could represent relationships that develops over years. And how you do these steps will be really different based on your roles, based on the people involved. And I think the beautiful thing is you can add your own flavor, and you are totally welcome to adapt these steps for your roles. And I love that in terms of internal service, at Zingerman's, we practice these staff amongst ourselves. One thing I've heard from Paul Saginaw, co-founder, is that frontline staff will never give better service than they've received from their leaders. And that to me means that if we're not practicing with one another, we're practicing our customers. So the fact that we live and embody great service with each other makes it easier and more successful, really, in terms of helping us give great service externally. And it makes for a great work environment, I have to say, and I hope a greater community for the world. So that's my bit on giving great service. I would love to take questions. Katie will be compiling those for us. And I will stop sharing my screen so we can focus on questions.
Hello, I'm back. Thank you so very much, Jenni. It's just like so wonderful to listen to your voice. It's very compelling and so we do have a couple of questions that have come through. So Beth would like to bring us back to the 10-4 rule, which we talked about, and is wondering if you have any training suggestions to help people who don't have a lot of self-confidence or just maybe are naturally more introverted, and sort of find it challenging to make eye contact and play that role.
Thank you, Beth, for this great question. It's like you know me already. So I'm someone, actually growing up, I was extremely shy. I hardly spoke in public. I did not tend to make eye contact. It's just how I was. And if I take the Myers-Briggs introvert scale, I'm like on 92 or something, really high. So I love the 10-4 rule. And one tip is that if you want to practice it, first you can let people know making eye contact and smile doesn't have to be that dramatic. One of the beautiful things about 10-4, how people greet, is we have a range of 10-4 practices in our organization. So even amongst our coworkers, some people it's a really big smile and really direct eye contact. Others, it can be a little more subtle. Someone in the warehouse at Zingerman is one of the is really subtle and will walk by and just say, "Hey, what's up?" And that's it. And I always go to them for help. Really, like, the impact is not so much to perform socially. It really is to connect with an individual, to let them know you're available. And you can practice with each other. So you can actually measure out and use masking tape or physical objects. For example, like hotel lobbies have this already set up. Sometimes it will even change from carpet to hard floor, so you can hear, staff can hear when luggage wheels change, and they know that's the distance when to look up and make eye contact with someone. And then when they come a little bit closer, there'll be usually tiles will help mark. All right, this is when they can hear me. They're close enough to hear me. I can talk. Absolutely. I can also share that in terms of neurodiversity, this is one of the things I appreciate about 10-4, is if we say, be friendly and go be nice to people, that can be very, very vague to some, while it's really clear to others. But if we say at 10 feet, make eye contact and smile, 4 feet verbally greet, such as hello, that is consistent for everyone. And so I happen to have 2 children, one neurotypical, one who is neurodivergent on the autism spectrum. And when I told them, hey, go be nice to people, they did very different things. And then when I taught them the 10-4 rule, it was amazing. They did the same thing. And a funny thing about smiling is we humans, we have mirror neurons. And so if I smile, even if the other person doesn't smile, neurologically, there's a little bit of something happening in their brain and body that gives a positive response. So we can let people know, actually, smiling isn't just performing for someone or others. It's actually helping them feel better because their bodies will automatically respond. So again, it doesn't have to be super huge. It doesn't have to be super intense eye contact, but just an acknowledgement. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Okay,
and if I can mention one more thing. Sorry,
Of course.
I used to do a lot of diversity, inclusion, equity, belonging, those themes also in for neurodiversity. 10-4 rule, I think, is one of the most impactful things people can do if they want to address inclusion and be more consistently inclusive. Because we all have unconscious bias. If I see a customer I think is going to be, say, difficult, I might suddenly find something I need to do and avoid eye contact and go into a back room. 10-4 means we consistently greet everyone. I myself am a minority, racially, gender-wise. I've totally been in line businesses, had other people in line in front of me, and wondered, did I just get passed over because I wasn't noticed? And wondering that, and I've never wondered that at Zingerman's because I've been acknowledged by everyone. Yeah, just practice it, and you can even practice it for 1 week or 2 weeks with your staff to try it out, see how it goes. So it's less intimidating than making it, everyone has to smile now change. Okay, that's no.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katie.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next question. We've had a little rumble of them come in. So Ross is wondering that we hire someone at Zingerman's and there's a potential language barrier. How do we address this and sort of overcome that together?
That's a lovely question. That's something that I wouldn't, if you have not already, to work with your human resources department to make sure that what resources you may have available are explored. And so for our organization, this may look like offering a service class or several orientation classes in Spanish. It may mean if you don't have translation available in training, you can make a plan to do translations, or you could hire translation services to be present at trainings. And you may also, depending on where you're located, sometimes universities will have language bank resources where they have students who major in a language who need practice and experience helping people out. And so sometimes there are less costly resources available. I think also checking in consistently, making sure that you have priorities on training to make sure what is communicated and follow up to make sure things are completed consistently, and making sure that, when there are language barriers, that both sides are able to communicate, whatever the languages are. Yes. Any other
Yeah.
thoughts, Katie? Yeah.
No,
I know it's super broad and can have various examples, but maybe let's say for an example, because we were just doing an orientation, we sometimes do small group work more if we're in a class or in an employee setting, we may have people talk in pairs one-on-one or in small groups, as opposed to everyone share in front of the large group of 20 people when we know not everyone is super comfortable with their English in a large group.
yeah.
Mm.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think that ties into like, it's good internal service. It's thinking, there is also thinking about those 3 steps and how they apply to this very specific situation.
Yes. Figure out what the guest wants, and then figure out what the staff person wants or needs. And they may not realize what's available or maybe what they actually need. There are many things I've been offered that I did not think to ask for.
Okay. We've got a question about how, like, this all sounds wonderful. And how do you really get your frontline staff to stay motivated day in and day out to give fantastic service?
You need a lot of things. I'd love to just say like a cookie or something really simple, but it's a lot of things. It's having a culture of great service. And so letting frontline staff know that they're valued. At Zingerman's, we take a servant leadership approach where we are the most important staff in our organization, our frontline staff. And I would say if anyone ever takes our full 2.5-hour virtual workshop on customer service training, or we can go to you to do private training, or you could come to us and we'll host you at ZingTrain. We also have a 2-day seminar on the art of giving great service. I think in those sessions, we talk about living great service. And in living great service, we talk about energy management. And I would say that's pretty key because we recognize that in order to consistently give great service, it takes a tremendous amount of energy, emotionally, physically. And so we actually practice a Zingerman's energy recipe. And when I worked at Zingerman's mail order basically during the pandemic, and it got pretty intense, I really appreciated we checked in with each other on energy every 2 hours consistently. And we would rate our energy on a scale of 0 to 10, and not necessarily like battery energy, like can I function, but like how present can I be in order to focus and give great service or do this task efficiently. And we really aim to be at a 9 or 10 level of energy in order to give a level 9 or 10 service. We know we can give a level 9 or 10 service when we ourselves at our lower number, but that leads to burnout. So we do a lot of work. We're doing a lot of snacking behind the scenes. We're doing like any pick-me-ups, whether it's a song, a playlist. For myself, I would take an extra drive around the block before I would come in for a shift. Like a lot of little things to add up to help energy management and a lot of coworker support. I think also appreciations that are specific and timely to let someone know, not just that they did a good job, but how they did a good job and what they did, how it impacted others. Sharing those kind of things at the end of a shift or more organizationally, if you have an appreciation system, those can help people feel seen, supported. I think one of the reasons we have trouble finding a great service is sometimes it's not trained on and it's not reinforced. Like sometimes people don't know when they could improve, and they also may not know when they're doing great. So if we're giving feedback, that helps. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is, like you said, it's building a culture, and culture is something that really can take years. And that is to say, like, it's really just in a lot of small moments, like small intentional moments over time. One of the things that I learned here that's been really helpful for me is like, you can do all of these small, great moments of service, and some of them are going to make a bigger impact than others on somebody, but you don't know which ones. And so,
oh my gosh, so
right,
true.
You just keep giving, and you keep setting an example, and then like slowly the tide will turn.
Yes. And, those moments, because you really, sometimes we find out, weeks or months later that like, oh, that thing that I don't remember doing, like helped someone's life immensely or, and so when we do get like a compliment, an email or, we do try and connect it back to that staff person so they know the impact that they had. And then we can also add on like, by the way, you can share this with your family and let them know how great you are. Save it for your own good feel good file. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had another question that was kind of answered in your answer to this question. And it was from Robin about how we offer this training beyond an online training or a webinar. We do have a 2-day seminar that we teach here at ZingTrain. And then we also offer this as a private training just for your team. And I will include a couple of links just if anyone would like to learn more about what more in-depth training on customer service could look like.
We can travel. And we can also do a virtual series. And that's kind of become one of my more favorite things is when we can work with an organization and do multiple virtual sessions over time. And that's actually been really exciting for locations that we cannot work with in person because they're spread out. But virtually we can meet, a couple, like once a month over the course of a year and do a number of different topics that are related. Check it out.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions now about when a customer experience doesn't go well and how to navigate that. So I'm going to start with one from Tess. Her question is, how do you help staff if they feel a guest is rude to them and they feel that helping the guest is hurtful to them, or like it's not, the interaction isn't necessarily going to get better?
Yes, this is also an art and can take experience. And one of the reasons that role play with each other is super helpful because you can practice this before it happens with actual customers. I would say a number of different things. It helps to delineate what is too much. And again, role plays can help with that because there are times we want to protect our staff from abusive situations. I know when it goes too far, it's very helpful to know who to contact, who to pull in, what words to say. If you have a code word type system, so like I have a red situation, I need someone to take over right now, or, or maybe call the police, whatever it is we do. But more often than not, yes, customers can be rude. Customers can be less than kind. Customers can be at some of the worst moments in their life is when they're ordering bread from us. And that's one of the reasons we try and keep key. We don't know what's going on with them. It's often not about the complaint about the sandwich order. There's probably something huge going on. And I've even had customers say, the pandemic has ruined me, but this bacon has pushed me over the edge. And you are. Yeah. But we do have 5 steps for effectively handling customer complaints. And I think we can share in the follow-up resources, links to those. That is another side of our customer service delivery that is immensely helpful. Similar to 3 steps, we have 5 steps that we consistently follow when we handle complaints. And so practicing those can really help a staff or department figure out when is too far, what are those moments you need to get someone, but really 99% of the complaints staff can handle. And it's actually really great to see staff become empowered and more confident over time, like myself, who was totally afraid of complaints. And then after time, realizing that I could help people. And sometimes those interactions actually become quite positive. It can really be a beautiful thing. Yes. So I'm sorry that was vague and it kind of went all over the place, but yeah, we have a lot of resources. We spend a lot of time training on effectively handling complaints. We get a lot of complaints, and part of that is because our customer base tends to complain more because they know that we listen and we want the feedback.
Yeah. Sorry, there's a lot here. I'm trying to.
Oh yeah, and
I'm parsing out which question makes sense to ask next. So what about? So I guess there's a guest that might be rude and there's this negative sort of emotional interaction between them and the staff. There's also a type of customer that Gabe is curious about, guests that are unrealistic in their expectations. Do you have any specific?
Sometimes guests the sunlight may be in their way and they want you to move the sun. They don't want to move. That may be an unrealistic expectation. Sometimes we're limited in what we're able to do and we're not able to provide. We try to focus what we are able to do as opposed to focusing on what we cannot. We just continue to focus on what we can offer, Sometimes when they are unrealistic, again, we try to lead with not how can I make this right for you, but us offering options that are realistic that we know we can do. If it's completely unrealistic, we get a second person in. That's a huge tool, whether it's a manager or another coworker, but a second person in, so it's not just you, to say these are the options we have available. Sometimes that second person says exactly the same thing you did, and then the customer's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. You're like, wait, I just said the same thing. But it's the value of a time delay sometimes if you go to get a second person or put them on hold to get another person. Sometimes they're thinking about it, and usually we have that second person repeat the scenario back. I've said, okay, you have received cold French fries and you would like a $500 refund. The person hears that, told to them, and they're like, actually, maybe that's a little unrealistic. So, okay, maybe I'll just take a replacement, whatever it is. And really, I really, that feeling of, if they're being rude, I don't want to give them good service. Think of it the other way of when there's someone who's like, oh, I really don't want to bother you with this, but I could use a little help. I'm so sorry to ask for this. I'm bothering you. Those are the people we fight to help. If we consistently give the same service, regardless of how they're asking, it's huge. And our ability to give great service with dignity and for people to be able to receive and live life with their dignity. Because I know that when I've been a difficult customer, those are the times when I need help the most. And I've absolutely had customers call back and say, I'm so sorry. The way I was on the phone earlier, I've been in quarantine with my in-laws for the past 6 months, and I'm not proud of how I was acting, and I really appreciate your help.
Yeah, it's great. We have 2 questions that I would love to get in. There are a couple of just would love your ideas about different ways to apply great service in 2 different situations. One is the 10-4 rule being applied in a phone center environment.
Yes.
And then the second one is extra miling with clients based overseas.
Ooh, okay, lovely. Okay, one, call center. I worked in a call center, and one thing is, yes, smile before you answer the phone. You can hear that. We also believe you can hear an eye roll on the phone. So we try to really watch our body language. And fun fact, I heard a story of once when someone did roll their eyes and the person happened to be on their cell phone and could actually see them. And we're like, whoa, that's too real. So we do watch our body language. Also, we try and focus. And so I try to not multitask when I'm on the phone. And you can have actually a focal spot. If you're someone who's not regularly answering the phones, you could actually, I have my phone currently turned away from my computer, so I physically move my body and get into a focus space when I answer the phone. So that's an example of 10-4. And a more literal sense is to try and answer the phone within 2 or 3 rings. Or if you're not able to do that, then to have a message to let people know what's going on. Like, thank you so much for holding. We'll be with you as soon as we can. And the other scenario was extra miles for overseas.
Yes.
And what you can. A lot can be done electronically. Yes.
Yeah. I'll give you one piece of detail. They're an agency that provides writing services.
Writing services. So writing for others or helping? to edit. However, it is any clients overseas. Well, one, if you want to send them food, I would recommend non-perishable items that may be in shipment for a long time that are durable, but also electronic. And then sometimes examples, like if they're wanting a particular kind of style, you could provide other examples. And you could offer, say, like samples of service. So that's an extra mile sometimes that we can think of in service of, oh, if you're not sure you want to try out this whole service, maybe we'll try just a little bit, and then you can see how you'll like it or not. And then sometimes if they're fans of your home base, you could share things from your home base, like even pictures of where you're based out of, or stories about your staff. Sometimes those are even extra miles to help develop a relationship.
Yeah. Thank you. It was I feel like you did like a lot of brainstorming. It was beautiful to watch and I think really appreciated by everyone. It is 1 minute past the hour. And so I want to just give a quick wrap up. I appreciate you all sticking around for this extra time with myself and Jenni. You've asked great questions. There are a couple that have gone on unanswered, and we will provide some extra resources to help, along with some resources for some of the questions we were able to get to too. We have some follow-up for you all. I want to extend a huge thank you to you, Jenni. Thank you very much for being here, and also to Mara, aka Jenna Lyons, for rocking out the chat behind the scenes. We do have a evaluation link that Mara will drop into the chat, please and thank you. It's really quick. We just love to hear what you thought of the webinar, the conversation, what you might want to see in the future, because we really care about that feedback, and it informs what we will bring back to future webinars. We'll also be sending out a recording of this tomorrow, and so look for that in your inbox, and we will look forward to seeing you back in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Happy
everyone.
Halloween.
Take care.